It can often feel like a struggle to change our habits, our behavior, our way of thinking, the way we feel. And it would seem that a big part of the problem is the judgment that we have in regard to ourselves. When we judge ourselves, we disempower ourselves. We sabotage our efforts because there's this sense that there's something inherently wrong with us. We're broken or defective or inherently bad. And if you believe that sort of thing, then how can you change? How can you be capable of changing when you essentially see yourself as incapable? In some cases, the judgment is such that we don't even want to look at ourselves. We avoid acknowledging those things about ourselves that we have condemned because there's so much shame around it. And so, to avoid the shame, we avoid the whole thing. We turn away from it. We distract ourselves. Maybe we even deny it. And so it never gets resolved because we're unwilling to look at it. So this is where self-acceptance plays a large role, to accept yourself just as you are, with all of your flaws and failings, all of your mistakes and misdeeds, all of the things that you have considered unacceptable. And when you are able to do that, something really magical happens. Those things that you've condemned, once having accepted them, once having opened up a space around them in which they can be observed without judgment, where they can be met with compassion and with curiosity, and you can look deeply into them to see all of the underlying mechanisms which before you were unconscious of, but now you're beginning to understand them. Now you're aware of how they arise and how they operate. And what begins to happen is that without any effort, they begin to change all on their own. You can spend years avoiding these things or struggling with them, judging, resisting, and so on. And yet they persist. And in some cases, the more effort you put into it to get rid of these things or to change them, the more persistent they become. And you just wind up feeling exhausted, feeling all the more discouraged. But as soon as you let go and relax and just allow it to be there, and you just bring awareness to it, you see how it operates, you see what's behind it, and just in seeing that, it begins to lose its hold over you. You notice some behavior, for example, which is problematic. Maybe it's something that's been affecting your relationships in a negative way. But instead of trying to force a change in your behavior, you just become more aware of it. You start to pay attention so that whenever that behavior arises, you can acknowledge it and observe it. And then you start to examine it. You look into it to try and understand why you behave in that way. And perhaps you notice, for example, that just beneath the behavior, there's some underlying emotion some uncomfortable emotion, perhaps like fear or frustration or maybe sadness. And as you turn your attention to that and explore it, you discover there's this unhealed emotional wound that you've been carrying from a long, long time ago. And you bring your awareness to that wound with gentle curiosity, with compassion and acceptance. And you find that within this wound there's some sense of being inadequate or unworthy or unlovable, of not being good enough. And whatever it is that you have deemed unacceptable about yourself, you begin to accept it. You meet it with loving kindness and compassion. And in doing so, the wound begins to heal. And as it heals, the behavior begins to change. And all you did was look at it without judgment. All you did was go into it and meet it with loving kindness, with compassion, with acceptance. You didn't have to make any effort to change anything. The change happened all on its own. All you had to do is accept it and acknowledge it and bring awareness to it. And it might require going through that process several times, each time going a little deeper, each time resolving it a little more. But the more we do this, the more that change happens as a result, not by force, but through understanding. And this is the transformative power of self-acceptance. That just by accepting yourself as you are, you open up a space for transformation to happen naturally and effortlessly.